Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pipes, Tobacco, and Whiskey. So today we are here with the legend of pipe carving in America and quite honestly in the entire world. And you know him from the documentary made Father the Flame. This is Mr. Lee von Erck. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, I'm pretty easy to get because I try to give back to the hobby as much as I can.
Well, for a small channel like ours, this is an honor to have you on. We really do appreciate it. Now, if you're anyone that has been in the pipe community for a month, you know who Lee von Erck is. But and you've most everybody that has been in the hobby for a significant amount of time has watched the documentary, and so they know that story about you. But I kind of want to go a different direction, if you don't mind. I want to know a little more about Mr. von Erck that people don't always get to find out about. So, can we start by you telling us how you got into pipe smoking?
Oh, uh, well, that goes back to 1958. I was basically I graduated from high school in June, and I was a cigarette smoker. I had purchased a couple of corn cobs, but didn't like them, and I had a couple of the rop,
Yeah,
from France.
those French pipes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. But I didn't have a briar. My dad was a pipe smoker, and one of my grandpas was a pipe smoker. And after graduating in June, on December 9th, I landed in Germany on a troop ship and spent 2.5 years in France. This was in 1958. They had cigarettes rationed on us. We couldn't buy, and I worked in an office of all things. And I joined the army. I didn't join to be a secretary, as I said. But anyway, yeah, in an office, you light a cigarette, you put it in the ashtray, and you type in, and you stop, and you light another cigarette, and you still got one burning. So you go through your ration quick. So what do? We start smoking pipes.
Ah.
And we could buy those long channels from Paris, the leather covered ones. And while we were getting them, and the tobaccos were the old half and half, Prince Albert, Country Club or whatever. There were a bunch of good old tobacco in those days. Half and half in PA were quality tobacco. So we were smoking good tobacco, but didn't know it. Well, I brought all of the pipes that I had over there home. And I was out in the yard one day in the winter with one of my German shepherds, and I leaned over and it fell out of my shirt pocket, and I didn't see it. And the dog found it during the winter, and he chewed on the leather all winter. When I did find it in the snowbank, the bit was still fine. Everything was good. The leather was all chewed to hell. So I cut the leather off. Do you know? There was just enough briar in that pipe to hold the putty together. Really. I told Rex Pogenpaul that story here the other day, and he said he's cut the leather off some of them and found very good grained pipes in there.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to cut the leather off the rest of mine and figure out what they are.
That may be the only thing keeping it together to be able to smoke.
Mine was rather pity. That particular one, and it was a oval bowl billiard, and people always thought those oval tobacco holes
Yeah.
I mean, you make an oval bowl, but then put a round hole in it. But it was an oval tobacco hole.
You know, I know what you're talking about because I have one that's a Peterson
Yeah.
that is made of leather, and it's got a little clamp at the bottom where you store your tobacco in there, and then you open up the bottom, and it just kind of falls out. You know.
This pipe didn't have any. It was just a plain pipe. But the thing of it is, the very small ends where they're, in an oval, the two ends, that would carbon first, and it wouldn't long, and you ended up with a round bowl.
Similar to what those old timers would just allow that cake to kind of just. So really, then you got your start in pipe smoking with the military. Then, huh? It was out of convenience, actually, out of necessity.
Well, I probably would have been a pipe smoker eventually.
Yeah.
I gave up cigarettes 40 years ago. It got to the point where the cigarettes didn't taste good, and little by little I weaned myself off. In fact, I tried quitting in the service every couple of years. I tried. There was a way of doing it came out in the news, or maybe it was in Reader's Digest or something. You pick a day to start, whenever you want. And the first day, you don't smoke for the first hour. Then you smoke as much as you want all day long. The second day, the first 2 hours you're up, you don't smoke. And you continue to do that. When you start on Monday, already come Friday and Saturday, you're 5 hours out. And it's the weekend. And it's hard to get through the weekend.
You're not working or doing whatever it is that you.
We were on the beach somewhere in France. But I tried that. It didn't work. It worked, really. If I was able to stick with it. You could sleep in late on Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Well, that would push your 5 hours way out in the day or way out in the...
Back then, what was your favorite tobacco to smoke?
Well, it's hard to remember, but I smoked a lot of half and half. That was probably my favorite. Prince Albert wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I think I probably smoked mostly half and half.
You know, I found a full jar of half and half from the 1960s.
Ooh.
And, of course, it was dry as a bone. But we reconstituted it and put some moisture back into it. And it's delicious. I really like it. I mean, it's a good tobacco. I enjoy smoking it.
Yeah.
So I can see where folks really thought that was a really good tobacco.
Yeah, well, back when I was a kid, there were a lot more pipe smokers then than there was in the 50s. Back in the 40s, there were a lot, but there were fewer of them. If you go back to the 30s, that's when tailor-made cigarettes came out, and they were more convenient.
Yeah.
So that's when your grandpa or great-grandpa started to change from a pipe to cigarettes. Because now he could smoke at work. Take a short break or smoke while he's doing it. He couldn't do it with a pipe. It was easier, quick, have a quick smoke. But that's my theory. That's not a proven thing.
So, you say you got started in the 50s smoking a pipe.
1958.
Yep. And then kind of just developed as a true and blue pipe smoker. How did you transition from buying a pipe to, hey, I can do that. I can make a pipe.
It wasn't like that at all.
How did that happen?
I was in a completely different profession. It was extremely competitive, and I was a professional dog handler. I took dogs around the country showing them for other people. a van full. I've had as many as 18 dogs in a van going to a dog show. And you're running around the ring all the time. And I was in my mid-40s, and I knew it was coming to an end. It's an athletic type job,
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
You know? And whether you want to believe it or not, every athletic career ends early. And I knew it was time to look for something else. I got a friend that didn't quit, and he had to have both knees and both hips replaced. Like in a bad weather time of year, you're running on concrete all day. And a friend of mine had purchased a tobacco store in Green Bay and moved it to Marquette. And I had a bunch of pipes that needed bits, broken tendons, chewed through, that kind of thing. And the subject of pipe repair came up. And the guy from Green Bay knew a man in Minnesota that was selling a repair business. He was at the point, he was having some health problems. That guy was a World War II vet, and he was having some health problems, and he wasn't reliable to the customers. So for the first 4 or 5 years, I did nothing but repair pipes. And when I started, I thought, this is a good thing. I got pipes of my own I got to fix. I can fix other people's and replace the money I'm going to lose from showing dogs to at least some income. And so that's all I did for 4 or 5 years at first. But it was a good lesson because I saw every type of pipe that's made. You know, I fixed Petersons and Dunhills and Dr. Graybo's. I fixed everything.
So you really got to know pipes that way.
I would get big boxes from pipe stores. It'd take me at least a couple of days to go through. At one point, I was shipping and receiving from UPS so much stuff, I became a pickup point. And I was on the highway, and I was, the guy that delivered to me, he was on his way out of town. So I was probably his first stop every morning. And he'd go down the highway and he'd come back late in the afternoon. And I told Glenn, I said, if I got pickups, I'll put a big white sheet of paper, and I had big picture windows facing the highway. I said, I'll put a big piece of white paper, because he could see it coming up the road. That's when you stop and pick up something. Otherwise, just keep on going and go home.
It's a good method of communication, I guess.
And then it started to, I don't know, it started into my head somewhere and kept nagging me to try and make a pipe. Well, if I'm going to, and I go, this is the conversation I would have with myself. If you're going to make pipes, you got to make them stand out. You're no sense in just making what everybody else is making, because why are they going to buy it from you? Let's make them smoke good. Well, how do we make them smoke good? Well, Dunhill oil cures, but they're not going to tell you anything. You know? So let's figure out an oil curing process. So I had when I bought the business, I got a huge cardboard box full of, he called them practice pipes, the guy I bought them from. And Dave said to me, he said, you get a pipe in, you haven't done that to a pipe before. He said, take one out of the box, break it the same way that one's broken, fix that one first, so you know how to do the other one. And so I got all these pipes, and there was a ton of them in there. And there was some nice stuff. There was Webers in there was BBBs in there. What I do is I take a pipe out of there, throw the bit away, ream it down to wood, try something with oil curing. When it's done, put a new bit in it and smoke it. And I gave some of those away too. And then at the beginning, The first one I tried myself. I'm not going to make my friends or relatives guinea pigs. That pipe, when I lit it, lasted 2 puffs and went in the garbage. I was back to square one, you know. And I just kept experimenting. And I got to the point where, yeah, these smoke good. This is you know, and, all right, now it's time for, these are used pipes, so I know how the curing process works with the used pipe. What about new wood? Because that's a whole different picture. So at the time, J.H. Lowe was in New York. This is long before they sold to Lane Limited or they moved down to Georgia, Stone Mountain. I bought, I think it was 75 pieces of the cheapest briar they had. It was all Evishans, made small pipes. I couldn't make that pipe out of the stuff they had. And I started making pipes, and I developed a evaluation sheet. And each pipe, I gave most of them away. I sold some at this pipe show years ago, and they went with the sheet. And some of them, I threatened them. I sold them for like $25, but I didn't have that many that I sold. And I told the people that got them, if you don't send this in, I send Guido. Which is
Your cousin Guido, huh?
Yeah. And I haven't got a cousin Guido. So that's rather politically incorrect these days, but that's what I said back then.
Well, I don't think Italians would take offense to that because
Most of them
I'm
don't.
Italian and I know exactly what that's like. So,
Yeah. And when I started getting those back, there was nothing but praise and glorious remarks. And of those 75, and I've still got the sheets that they returned. There wasn't one bad one. So I knew I was on to something. Well, now it's time to buy plateau briar. And I bought my first one. There was 4 pieces in an Edwards store in Milwaukee. And I did a lot of work for them, and I was in that store periodically. And I bought those big pieces. They were big. And those sold right away. I kept one. Dummy me. I kept the first pipe I ever made from that stuff from J.H. Lowe.
yeah,
I still got the first one out of it.
incredible.
Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
About when was that?
Early 80s,
Okay.
somewhere in there. A little later in the mid 80s. It took total of, I forget, but like 2 or 3 years to get it developed. The really hard part, once I got into it, was finding the combination of oils that leaves that nutty flavor
Yeah.
we talk about. That was the hardest part.
And that took you a couple of years to get that right, huh?
Yeah, that was toward the end, and I had tried some different things, and they all worked, but there was differences in everyone. You know, the difference between peanut oil, walnut oil, corn oil.
Mm-hmm.
They all gave a different taste. So it's a combination of it.
Sure.
And I don't talk about it. I just tell you, I don't talk about it.
Yeah. That's
People
your
ask
thing,
me-
you know?
People ask me constantly, I want to talk about your oil curing process. My stock answer is I drive a Jeep Wrangler.
And then
And they look at me, you know, like, what, do you use new oil or old oil? You know, they got this big question mark. But that's how that happened. It was a lot of work, but it was something I was enjoying. The deeper I got into life, you know, into this, the more exciting it got. And then when I started with the plateau briar, now I've got this piece of wood, and it's a blank and I can do anything I want to it, and get it
Hey, Jake.
to see what's in there. You know, go in there and search around, find something. 'Cause I've done pipes, and then I get them done, and I look at them, and that's an ugly pipe. So I redesign them. I do something else. And this is the way the Danes do a lot. They shape the outside first, so they've got a lot of room to change shapes. They can go from a straight to a bent pipe.
Huh.
Well, I drill the holes first,
Uh-huh.
so I've still got some leeway, but I can't change a bent pipe to a. And that's how they can get so many nice, smooth
Yeah.
pieces, clean, tight briar or tight grain.
They practically had the whole briar to work with.
Yeah, and so do I. But they go after it in a different way. I never learned that way.
Yeah.
You know, I never learned to use a sanding wheel.
Interesting.
I did in my first shops. I didn't have space for it, for one thing. And now that I do, why do you want to, take the step back? I've got a 2-inch wide by 72-inch long belt sander, and some of those I cut that 2-inch wide right down the middle.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm using 1-inch wide and 2-inch wide. And Europeans also have very fine sandpaper on some of their belt sanders.
Yeah.
But they call it a slack belt. And when they're working or sanding on it, they put their fingers behind it because it's going very slow, and they can do an incredible job.
Interesting. That's interesting.
All mine are hand sanded. I use one of those old 3-jaw pipe reamers.
Yeah.
The top screws in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I stick that in the bowl, and then I put the reamer in the vise, and I cut my sandpaper in 1-inch strips and back it with masking tape, and I sand the bowl like I'm shining shoes. It goes quicker. You get a lot more sanding done quicker, and it works for me. That's the best advice I ever got. I think one of the 2 best pieces of advice I ever got in my life. One was from my dad. He said, I don't care what you want to be, just be the best.
Sure.
And the guy I bought the repair thing from, his best advice was, he said, you can't go into any hardware store anywhere in the world, or in the country, and go to any aisle and find one thing made for pipe making. He said, be inventive. Well, okay, that's a clue to go to the hardware store and walk around and look at stuff, and I see stuff I don't know what it's for, and I think, how can I use that in what I do?
Yeah.
A tool or something, a file, bend in it or something. Can you use it? How would you do it? So it's a constant thing. I'm pretty well set in the way I make pipes now. I've figured out what works for me, what's the fastest to turn out the best quality you can. And quality's always been my number one.
Absolutely.
My number one, what's the word? Qualification. And I'm very picky. I do suffer from OCD, so.
Well, most artists do, So, like, your first pipe that you really felt like was presentable to sell was, did you say in the 80s, early 80s? Is that when you started selling? your pipes?
That would have been more toward the mid 80s
Okay.
or late 80s. In fact,
And-
I've got a pipe with me that's it's dated, I think, 85 or something, 80, maybe 89. My serial numbers on pipes are, I started off doing 4 digits, but when I got to the point where I do over 100 or over 100 pipes in a year, I had to go to 5. Well, when you set your files up in the computer, that gets them all screwed up because of 4 digits and 5-digit numbers. So I changed to, they're all, since back, I got my first computer in the early 90s, before the internet, and I had a program on there for bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first 2 digits is the year backwards. So like a 1998, the serial number would start with 89.
89. Got
And
it.
the 3 digits after that, or 2 on some of them, would be chronological order within the year.
Okay.
And I can tell from those 3 digits approximately when I made the pipe. Now, there were years when I made over 100 pipes a year, but not too many. And my own theory on when to raise prices has always been when you can't keep inventory, you got to raise the prices.
Because there's a demand.
Right. So now, when I first started going, I was going with a Foot Locker with 3 layers of pipes. I'd have 40 pipes with me. I did that at Richmond. I walked in, I had a Foot Locker with wheels on it because I was flying around. And now I'm down to a briefcase. I started off with 8 pipes on my table for this show.
Sure.
But every time you go up $50, you're cutting out
A certain clientele.
A part of the people. Every morning when that show door opens, there's only so much money comes in that door. And each one of those guys has got a top $150 pipe, $300 pipe, $500 pipe, and it goes up as the price of the pipe goes up, but it goes up slow. You know, I never paid more than $100 for a pipe. But boy, that's a nice $250 pipe. I guess I can go up there.
Yeah.
That kind. And then when you get 500 above 5 is a big step. You got to take that one cautiously. And then 750. And when you get to 4 figures, that's when it really gets tough because you cut out a lot of people. And most of the sales in that area are done in private, in my room at a pipe show or at home. I've got a pipe right now that's down at the laser engravers. I just sent one to Alaska, and that was all done online, but in private.
But now you're at the point in your career where, I mean, you can pretty much get whatever you want, and people are buying multiples from you. I saw in Father the Flame where you went to Japan and brought 12 pipes with you.
That was after the pipe show. I'd already sold a bunch. That scene, that was Saab Sugate.
Yeah.
He's the president of Sugate Pipe. They're my distributors in Asia.
Okay.
And there was about 8 pipes on the table.
And he took them all.
Yeah, well, I kind of could tell in his eye, you know, he liked them all. And he talked about the flutes and the work that goes in. Saab knows pipes. He
Yeah.
knows how much work those are to
Yeah.
do the sanding and the finishing. And yeah, and I thought it was nice when he said, "We'll take them all." And they did that for years. They'd buy everything I had left after the pipe show.
And that's a nice feeling. Somebody that appreciates your art like that, you know?
But, well, talk about art. That family, the Suge family, has got a collection of carved ivory. Probably shouldn't talk about it. It's humongous, and it's
So how many pipes did you say you brought with you this time?
8.
8 pipes. How many do you have left on the table right now? I
7.
mean, this is only a day later, right?
Right, 7.
7. I mean, you say when you first started, you were charging what, $200?
No.
Nothing like that.
$75.
And now you're what, in the four figures for sure, and they're absolutely beautiful. If somebody wants to buy one of your pipes, what's a good way to go about that?
Well, you get in touch with me online through my website. It's not quite current now, but there are some pipes up there that are labeled for sale, available. Early on the internet, on a website, I was putting my prices in there, but that's not when they were $200 and $300.
Right.
And I thought, that's a dumb move, and I stopped that real quick. Because some people, you know, they're touchy about that, especially the higher you go. And I know some people. The guy that sat here, he's sitting over there in the brown jacket.
Yeah.
He's a retired heart surgeon from Philadelphia. Now everybody's going to know who I'm talking about. But he's got a huge collection of bamboo shank pipes. He had, you know, at the old place over at
The Pheasant Run.
At Pheasant Run, yeah, they used to have those glass showcases.
Yeah.
He had a good share, not all of them, but he had that case one year.
Huh.
The year I got a Doctor of Pipes award, they asked me if I had a client that had pipes that would like to do it the next year. And what I did was I took 3 clients, a husband and wife team. They both each had their own. They were from Dayton. Took their and a good friend and a client from Missouri, and I combined their. I said, send me all your serial numbers, up to all 3 of them. Debbie did theirs, but the other guy sent me his. And I went down the list, because with the serial numbers now, I could, and my picture file is divided by year. So I know right where to go to find that picture of that pipe. And I opened up, I made a file for each one of them. And I copied all the pictures they had, or all the pictures of their pipes, into a separate file. And I went through each one. And the guy from Missouri, he's got his own buffing equipment, so he cleaned his up. But the people from Ohio put them in the box, because they were coming to this show at that time, and sent them to me, and I cleaned them all up, brought them down here. And then I got them each one of these lighters as a gift. And we put those in the showcase.
It's very cool.
But then we had them all mixed up, and the collections.
Right,
you
right.
know, and the lady from Ohio made tags for them and said who the owner was. I think she put the serial number on there, and I forget, that was a long time ago. That was 2014 I had that. I got Doctor of Pipes in 2013. Yeah, that was a fun thing.